Hey y'all, welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about the movie Don't Worry, Darling. I think this movie came out either last year or the year before that, so it's still relatively new. And I've heard some really good things about this movie, so we're just going to get into it. So the movie starts, and the first thing we're seeing is this get together, like this little house party kind of like just friends. It has this really old school, back in the day vibes. Ray Charles, the song Night and Day, I don't know if that's what it's called, but if you heard Night and Day, it's in the chorus. That song is playing in the background, and there's like this game going on where the women have trays on their head and they have a drink on the tray, and I guess they're trying to balance it. And it's a fun little vibe. Everybody's kicking it, having a good time. You can tell that everybody's very comfortable with each other, like they're all friends and everything. It's really cute. And it's a bunch of husband and wives, and they're all, coupled up, all lovey dovey and everything. And our main characters, Alice and Jack, yes, they leave and they do this little thing where Jack teaches Alice to drive in the middle of the desert. They live in this community in the middle of the desert, and it's like I said, it has a whole back in the day kind of vibe. So they're doing donuts in the desert, kissing. It's really cute, really romantic, and yeah, they're just being cute doing donuts in the desert. So the next day, Alice wakes up. She makes breakfast. It's the very typical wife at home cooking and cleaning. Husband goes off to work, like I said, back in the day style. And it's weird because all the men leave in unison. You see that the neighborhood is very structured to where everything's like perfectly timed and together. Like all the women are outside kissing their husbands goodbye, and all, like I said, all the husbands leave in unison. So it's very put together, I will say. Alice goes about her day. She's cleaning the house top to bottom like a good wife or whatever, and she goes off to the trolley. On a trolley, I think it is, or a bus. It looks like a trolley, but it's technically a bus. So what ends up happening is she ends up at this ballet studio. I guess all the women go there, and they're very put together, very in unison. The teacher, she's always says that there's beauty in symmetry and something about balance. Like it's very rehearsed. There's even a new woman there because her husband just started working on the Victory Project. The Victory Project is like what this town is surrounded on. It's what it's centered on. All the men are working on the Victory Project in some way or another. And this new couple came in, and the new wife showed up at the ballet studio, and she got the steps like that. It's like I said, everything's very neat, very put together. So after all of that, Alice is chilling with her best friend Bunny, like the bunny, yeah. And like I said, they're very close. That's basically her best friend, and Bunny's a gossip. I only mention Bunny right now because she comes up again later, and she's a relatively important character. After she hangs out with Bunny, she goes home to do a couple more chores. She's doing laundry. She goes outside to take the clothes off the little line thing with the clips that they used to do back in the day before dryers. So grateful for dryers. But yeah, they used to hang them up and clip them up and let the sun dry them. She's outside. She looks around and she sees this woman. Her name is Margaret. And she's sitting outside holding this toy airplane really tight, and her eyes are closed. She looks really sad, and Alice is just looking at her weirdly. Margaret is her neighbor, but just seeing her outside holding on to that toy, looking sad, it is a very weird scene. It's like it's almost ominous a little bit. So Alice, after that, she's in the house. She's cooking dinner. She's making steak and whatever. She's listening to the radio. And she cracks an egg. No, she doesn't even crack the egg. She holds the egg and she's just looking at it like something's wrong with the egg. And next thing you know, she crushes it in her hand. And there's weird ominous music in the background and everything. And she grabs another egg and she crushes it again. All the eggs are hollow and empty. So she's looking weird, like, what is this? And she's so distracted by the eggs, she almost burned dinner. But actually, she did end up burning dinner and end up cooking something else. But that was just one of the instances in the movie where it's like something is off. You know, this supposedly very symmetric, very organized, very neat neighborhood. Something is off because why are the eggs? Why are the eggs hollow? What's going on? So it's the next day. Alice is out by the pool, chilling with the other wives, talking with Bonnie and, the other wives, but, Bonnie and her are real close, like I said. And Alice, she has this song. She keeps humming. She has no idea where the song came from, why it's stuck in her head, where she heard it. And Bunny's like, what is that song you're singing? You keep singing over and over again. It's driving me crazy. She's like, I don't even know where it came from. It's just, I can't get it out of my head. And it's a very small scene, but the song is relevant. It will come up later. So the scene cuts. Jack and Alice, they're at this house party for Frank. Frank is the guy who, he's a big man in charge. He created the neighborhood. He's the boss. He's the guy that everybody loves. Like I said, he's the big guy, and everybody's drinking and having a good time, and the men are talking to each other, talking about how lucky, well, the new guy, he's talking about how he hasn't gotten a lot of time with Frank, and another guy who's been there a little bit longer, he's like, you're lucky to even be here. Frank is busy, he doesn't have time for people like you, blah, blah, blah. He was being very defensive over something very small, and the new guy was like, sorry, I was just excited, So that already gave Alice like pause because she was watching that interaction. It was like, okay, that was a bit much, but okay. And Frank's wife, I forgot her name, but she's out and she's giving a speech talking about how fantastic her husband is, how special he is, how he created something special for all of us, how lucky they all are to be there. Like, she's really hyping her husband up. I mean, I guess she a good wife and all, because she really was saying some great stuff about her husband, about how he's just amazing. He's just this amazing man, And she gets interrupted by Margaret, the lady from earlier with the toy plane. Margaret, she's a little discombobulated. She's like, why are we here? We're not supposed to be here. Like, you can obviously tell that she's noticeably agitated by something. And Frank, he kind of cuts her off. He's like, that's a good question. Why are we here? And her husband takes her away. I guess he's looking embarrassed because his wife did like a little outburst in front of the party and everything. Frank, he just goes on and kind of covers it up like, we're here to do something special. We're here to discover potential. He's saying stuff like the enemy of progress is chaos, and how he sees greatness in all of them and that they're there to change the world, yada, yada, yada. Just a big motivational speech. Everybody's clapping and cheering like, oh, we love you, Frank, or whatever. It's just a whole thing. But Alice, what Margaret said doesn't quite sit right with Alice. She's thinking about it a little bit. But after all that, Alice goes to go look for Jack because I guess they got separated in the party, and who she ends up finding is Margaret and her husband. Like I said before, Margaret was obviously agitated, and now she's sitting and she has an attitude right now. Her husband are trying to give her pills, and her husband's like, she's fine, she's just a little tired, she needs more sleep, and Margaret's like, I don't need sleep. Something's wrong, and I don't sleep. I have nightmares. And the whole scene, like I said, very ominous and weird. Like, Alice is just witnessing a bunch of weird stuff at this point. Like, something's not adding up. So she eventually leaves because the husband closes a curtain in front of her face so she would stop seeing Margaret and what they're doing. So Alice, she just dusts off, goes to continue to look for her husband. She eventually finds him, and Alice and Jack, I will say this, they're very together. They're very touchy-feely. They noticeably love each other. So, they getting it on at the party. And suddenly, Frank walks up. He's not announcing himself. He's not clearing his throat or nothing to make them stop. He's sitting there watching. Like he's enjoying the show. And Alice notices this and she gets like this weird look on her face, but she doesn't say anything at all, which was kind of weird to me. If you see this man watching you, your husband, get it on in the corner and you're not saying nothing, that part kind of made me think of something, I guess. But yeah, that was just a really weird scene. And the context of this scene will come up again later. So the next scene, presumably the next day, Alice goes shopping with Bunny and some friends, and they're all gossiping about Margaret and how she's unwell and how she's been acting strange. And apparently, Margaret used to be really good friends with Bunny, and they're saying that Bunny did something none of them are supposed to do. There's a rule that none of them are supposed to leave the designated areas and go out deep into the desert. Only the husbands do that with cars so they can work on the Victory Project. But Margaret, she walked out there with her son one day. And the story is the son, he disappeared. And nobody knows what happens to him, but he's presumed to be, And what Margaret says is they took her son to punish her for going out into the desert like she wasn't supposed to. And as they were telling that story, Alice, the visions from earlier, she had them again, but they got stronger. And she starts seeing like these black and white images of women who are like ballet dancers. And it was beautiful at first, but suddenly the images get like distorted, like the faces get all creepy and everything. It's a very weird and uncomfortable scene. So the next day, Alice, she's doing her normal routine, wake up, cook for her husband, clean the house or whatever, and she goes to the trolley like normal. But this day, she doesn't go shopping with her friends. She just stays in the trolley, and the bus driver starts making conversation with her, like, this is the end of the line, no shopping today, blah blah blah. She's like, yeah, I just need to go out and get some air. And he said, okay, well, I'm just gonna go back around, start my rounds again. And she's like, yeah, that's fine, I just need some air. Suddenly she starts to see this plane fly across the sky and then crash into a mountain. So she's freaking out. She's like, oh my gosh, did you just see that? Can you see that? He's like, no, ma'am, I don't see anything. So she's yelling to stop. And he's like, okay, like he's weirded out. And she gets out, she runs to where the crash site is, and she ends up out in the middle of the desert. And she sees like this dome looking building, but it's kind of up this circular hill. So she starts walking up the hill, and this is a long way. I'm just kind of speeding it up to say what's happening, but it's a long little walk. And she gets there, and she gets closer to the building. And like I said, it's a dome-looking building, but all the sides are covered in mirrors. So she's looking around like, this is very weird. This is very weird. So she walks up to the mirror, and she touches it with both hands. And all of a sudden, she's transported to like the images that she's been seeing. Now she's seeing it longer, like the dance. It's very hypnotic and very symmetric. The dancers are like in unison. It's beautiful. Like, it's black and white, and also at the same time it's beautiful, but it's creepy at the same time. And suddenly the screen cuts, and she's back at home in her bed. She's freaking out. She's like, how did I get home? She's weirded out. And she hears music in the background, and her husband home is singing. And she's asking, like, how did I get here? And he was like, you were here when I got here. Like, you were asleep in bed. You've been sleeping for hours. She's like, when did you get here? I got here hours ago. You were asleep when I got here. And, she's just telling him, it's like, what happened to her? And he was like, did you drink too much? And, he's doing his best to try to cook dinner. They're having like this little conversation where he's kind of like dismissing what she's saying, and she's trying to explain what happened to her. But she basically just dismissed the whole thing as like a really bad dream. And that was kind of the end of that. And they just went on with their regular night. So it's the next day. And once again, Alice is doing her normal routine. She's cleaning up around the house, top to bottom, and she's washing her not her mirrors, the glass, the windows. It's like the entire wall is made of windows. and she's cleaning it, but there's like something on it that she can't quite get off, that she can't notice that the wall behind her is slowly moving closer. And as it gets to her, it doesn't stop. It just, like, she starts getting smushed against the window, and it kind of smushes her face in, and it's getting tighter and tighter. And then suddenly it stops, and the phone rings, and she goes to pick up the phone, and it's Margaret. Margaret's is like, "You went out there, didn't you? You saw it. They're lying to us. We need to leave." And Alice, she's in denial at this point. Like, she knows some creepy stuff is going on, but she doesn't want to talk about it. She don't want to believe it. She's like, "You need help. Leave me alone. I'm not talking about this." And she hangs up the phone. So the next scene, Alice, she's at the ballet studio again. You know, she's doing her little dance. Everything's beautiful. Everything's symmetric and all that good stuff. Suddenly, she sees herself in the mirror, and it doesn't look like herself. It looks like Margaret. So she starts moving like, you know, and yeah, she's doing everything she's doing, but suddenly she stops. And Margaret's doing her own thing, and she starts banging her head against the mirror. And like I said, the music's getting louder. It's very ominous. It's very weird. The glass starts to break. And Alice, she's still freaked out, so she screams. And everybody's looking at her like she's crazy, because she's the only one seeing this, obviously, at this point. Like, everybody else is doing their normal thing, and she screams, and they're just like, "Are you okay?" They don't say it, but they're looking at her like, are you okay? And Alice, she's had enough of this. She dips it, she runs home, and she's just trying to breathe. But she goes into her backyard, and she sees Margaret standing on her roof. Margaret sees Alice. Alice is looking at Margaret, and Margaret, she takes a sharp object, and she, you know, and she falls off the roof. Alice, freaking out, she runs towards her, but she didn't get there in time, because there's these men in red jumpsuits. Two of them take Alice, and they forcibly drag her back to her house. And the other two are dealing with Margaret taking the sharp object in her body and dragging it away. So after this happens, the scene cuts again, and Alice is with Jack. She's freaking out. She's explaining everything that she saw. And Jack, he's basically dismissing it like, "Oh, the doctor said that she's fine. She's okay. She just had an episode. She just slipped and fell. It's not a big deal." Alice is like, "I know what I saw. You can't tell me I didn't see what I just saw." And he's basically gaslighting her, like, "Honey, you're stressed, like, you're sounding a little crazy, blah, blah, blah." She's like, "I'm telling you, I saw what I saw." And Jack, he yells at her. He's like, "You're going to jeopardize everything I worked for. You're jeopardizing our lives." And I guess that kind of like calms her down or whatever. And he just walks away. So she sits down or whatever. I don't know how long it is between that and her sitting down, but she's sitting down on the couch. She's watching some TV. And on the TV, there's like a commercial going on about how the Victory Project is great and how it's such a beautiful place to live. And they're showing like different areas of the Victory Project community. And she suddenly sees herself in the pool swimming. And the person in the TV suddenly goes underwater. And then the screen goes black, and she herself feels like she's underwater drowning. Like, it's a very crazy looking scene. Like, it's very weird. And she suddenly gasps for air, and it's the next day. So it's the next day. Alice, she's in denial, I will say that. But also she gets this nagging feeling because so much weird stuff is happening to her. She's losing it a little bit at this point, truthfully. And she's wrapping food with plastic wrap. Everything looks normal. Then suddenly she starts wrapping the plastic wrap around her face. And she's smoothing it back, making sure it's tight. And she's just breathing in and breathing in and breathing in. And like, she's not freaking out or anything. Like, this is just normal. Then suddenly she starts freaking out and starts pulling on it and everything. And she can finally breathe. And the scene cuts. And it's Alice, Jack, and this doctor that lives there. And he's just saying that, oh, she's just exhausted and, she just needs some rest. Is there like anything that like happened that's stressing you out recently? And Jack's like, oh, she did watch Margaret fall. The doctor's like, oh, and no. Actually, Jack was like, she did watch Margaret fall. And Alice, she's like, she didn't fall. It wasn't no tumble, because the doctor called it a little tumble. But she was like, she said what actually happened. And the doctor, he says that sometimes watching something traumatic causes memory distortion and even bad dreams. Like, he's basically trying to gaslight her right now. It's very obvious that he's trying to gaslight her right now. And he tries to prescribe her some pills. Jack's like, no, that's not necessary. We can handle this. Everything is fine. So that was kind of the end of that whole thing. But he was like, okay, I'm going to leave this here with y'all just in case. But Margaret, she sees something Alice sees something in his briefcase. So she's trying to distract the doctor at this point. And she starts asking about Margaret, about what happened to her and what did he actually do to her. And the doctor just explained that she's fine. She was just having a little trouble, mentally. And what ended up happening was she was causing so much trouble that she was getting in the way of her husband doing his job. And the husband actually ended up getting fired because of her. So that was kind of like a little red flag or whatever. But while talking to her about this, he was like, yeah, everything's fine, you're nowhere near as bad as her, everything will be fine. So he asked Jack to walk him out. While the distraction did work, because he left the briefcase. And once they left the door, Alice went to work. She was trying to get into the briefcase because it has like those little number lock things on it. So she's trying to get into it, and it finally opens. But as soon as it opens, the doctor comes back in, and she's like, oh, you left this, here you go. And, they're saying their goodbyes or whatever. Jack is also leaving for work. And apparently she did get the document, and she's looking at it, and there's nothing. It's just, there's stuff, but it's all blacked out. There's nothing that you can read. The only thing that I was able to read was she refused to take her medicine and the words final warning. So this upsets Alice because something's wrong. She's trying to get to the bottom of it. She thought this file would tell her something, but it tells her nothing. So she basically burns the file. Alice is very stressed out at this point. Like, something is wrong. This is nagging at her. She's trying to figure out something, but at every turn, everybody's telling her that, oh, she's fine, or looking at her like she's crazy or whatever, and they're basically gaslighting her into believing that she's crazy, but she's still like trying to investigate what's going on. So there's like a next scene. Later that night, there's a party going on for Frank. He's throwing it or whatever. It's all glam and giggles and laughs and drinks and dancing, and everything's going really cute or whatever. Alice, she feels uncomfortable because Frank is staring at Alice. Like, you can tell that he's watching her. He's been watching her. So she's like, Jack, I kind of want to go home. Like, I'm not feeling well. Can we go home? And he's basically ignoring her. And Frank calls him to the stage. Frank is basically hyping Jack up. He's like telling him how special he is and how he should be rewarded. So he got a promotion to, I think, something about a senior advisory board or something like that. He got a promotion. He got a nice little fancy ring to go along with it. So Jack, he's over the moon. He dang near about to burst into tears because he's so happy. And Alice, she's actually about to cry at this point. Like, you can visibly tell how she's just distressed. Like, she don't like the fact they got promotion. It's not that she's upset that he's doing well, but she knows something is off, so it's bothering her that he's getting closer to Frank. So she runs off into the bathroom. And while she's doing that, everybody's partying, having a good time, and Jack is on the stage dancing. Like, he's putting on a show. And Frank is just egging him on, like, look at him, watch the boy dance. You want to watch the boy dance? Blah, 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 And Alice, she's in the bathroom freaking out, hyperventilating at this point, really. And she starts to have a memory of her comforting Jack, saying that it's okay, you'll find another job. But As that happens, Bunny walks in. Bunny sees something's wrong with Alice, so she's trying to comfort her. Like, are you okay? What's going on? So Alice, like I said, Bunny and Alice, they're very close. They're basically best friends. And Alice tells Bunny everything. Like everything that she's witnessed, everything she thinks is going on, like everything. Bunny is noticeably upset with Alice right now. She's like, you're ruining everything. You sound crazy, blah, blah, blah. Like she's angry about everything that Alice is saying. And Alice is just left there like, what? Like, am I the crazy one? Am I crazy? Like she's literally questioning reality right now. Okay, so I don't know if it's later that night or another day, but Alice decides to throw a party and she invites all their friends and she even invites Frank and his wife. So everybody starts to show up and everybody's gawking and in awe about their house and all the nice stuff they got, blah, blah, blah. And even some of the male dudes, like Jack's friends, they're gawking over Frank and, trying to get in good with him and everything. Because, they saw Jack, Jack get promoted. They're just like, maybe if I get in good with the boss, I can get promoted. So everybody's, walking around, doing their own thing, chilling, having a good time at the dinner party. Alice goes into the kitchen, she's finishing up the finishing touches of dinner. And Frank walks into the kitchen. And he says, earlier Jack asked Alice, maybe we should have a baby. So Frank was like, I heard some good news. I heard you guys are going to be trying. She's like, yeah, we're still talking about it, blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly he says, I'm so sorry that Bunny didn't believe you. Alice is frozen. She's shook. She can't believe he just said that. Then he says, then again, you didn't believe Margaret, so why would anybody believe you? And Alice is just taken aback. Like, she literally cannot believe he just said that. And he's like, I'm so fascinated by you. Like, I've been waiting for somebody to challenge me. Any great leader in history has always been challenged by somebody to make them greater. I can't wait to see what you do, blah, blah, blah. Like, he's being very creepy about it, seriously. And he's enjoying this. He thinks all this is a game. And that's infuriating to Alice. It's literally making her blood boil at this point. So Frank walks away. Everybody's gathering around the dinner table. Frank is on this end of the table. Jack was for to sit down this end, but Alice was like, oh, thank you. And she sat in this chair. So everybody's talking, enjoying dinner or whatever. And Alice is like, she's asking people questions. She's asking about where did people meet? How did they meet? Their honeymoons and everything. And she's doing all this to make comparisons. Because apparently every single couple in the neighborhood, they all have one of three life experiences. Not necessarily life experiences, but life stories. Like every other couple met on a train and a dude reached down to get the ticket and they touched hands and it was like a really cute meet cute. Like every other resident has a story, or every other residents had their honeymoon at Niagara Falls or something like that. Like the stories are basically the same. And everybody's just shrugging it off like, oh, that's just normal, whatever. And Frank, he's amused by this. He's amused watching her trying to get these people to understand that something is amok right now. Something is amiss. And she's basically saying, Frank is controlling us. Look at this food. Victory eggs, victory drinks, victory this, that. Where's all this stuff coming from? Frank is controlling us. This is not normal. Everything is weird. Everybody is looking at her like she's crazy. Frank is sitting there with a smirk on his face. Like I said, he's amused by what she's doing. And at this point, Frank is making it seem like he got to answer everything. He's making it seem like, she's off her meds. She's starting to sound like Margaret, blah, blah, blah. He even insinuates he insinuates that they had interactions together in front of everybody. Like she cheated on her husband with him. And His Frank's wife, she steps in and calls her spoiled, and she's throwing a tantrum. She's not even she's been spoiled all her life, like she just takes and takes or whatever, and her husband's so extraordinary and all that mumbo jumbo or whatever. Like everybody's really laying into Alice right now. And Jack, he's just over there next to her, just in shock, embarrassed. Like he's angry actually. So everybody leaves. Like the Frank's wife leaves first, and then everybody follows behind. Like, I'm tired of this. I'm done. I'm gone. Because everybody thinks she's crazy now. Now it's just Alice and Frank. Frank's like, I really expected more from you. Like he's disappointed by the way she handled it or whatever, and he just walks away. So after Jack has a talk with Frank, he comes back in the house. He's angry. He's not saying anything, but he's angry. Alice, no, actually, he's like, did you enjoy yourself tonight? And Alice, she's pleading with him to believe her, because everybody's treating her like she's crazy. She needs the man she loves, the man who loves her, to believe her what she's saying right now. And she's just like, you're bigger than Frank. You're bigger than all of this. I believe in you. It doesn't matter where we are or what we do. As long as we're together, it does not matter. I need you to believe in me right now. We need to go. And I guess Frank was just like, okay, let's go. I mean, not Frank, Jack. Jack was like, okay, let's go. We can do this. So Alice, she's happy. She's so happy. And she packs up all the important necessary stuff, some snacks for the road, everything. So they're in the car. And she's like, okay, let's go. And Jack's just sitting there with her hands on the steering wheel, just quiet. She's like, Jack, let's go. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I love you so much. I'm so sorry. She's like, Jack, what are you talking about? We need to go. And there's men surrounding the car, the men in the red jumpsuit again. And she's like, Jack, he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He's saying it over and over again. Like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And they're taking her. They're forcibly hurting her to take her away. And he's distraught at this point. Like it's very obvious at this point that Jack is in on what's going on. And Alice was just taken away by men in the jumpsuits. So the men in the red jumpsuit, they took her, and she's on this operating table. There's people around her, like they're doing stuff to her. I cannot explain it because I don't know what YouTube allows or whatever, but she's screaming. It's painful, and it's all crazy. But in the midst of all of this craziness, she's getting flashes of her old life, and she sees this memory of her and Jack together, and she's like, it's okay, you'll find another job, I'll pick up extra shifts or whatever. And then the scene moves to their old life, and apparently Alice in real life is a surgeon. She works at this hospital. She's very well known and liked at her hospital. And she gets home. Mind you, the home they live in is this really raggedy old apartment place, I guess. And Jack, he's on the computer. Jack looks nothing like how he looks in the Victory Project community or whatever. His facial hair is grown, his hair is grown. He looks very, he doesn't look as neat and clean as he does in the Victory Project. I'll just say that. And as soon as she walked the door, he's like, hey, I'm hungry. Basically, yeah, I'm hungry. She's like, why didn't you eat? He's like, I didn't know what you wanted or whatever. Like it seemed like he's trying to insinuate that she should cook him dinner, even though she literally just worked a 30-hour shift. And I guess Jack, he moves past it or whatever, and he holds her. He grabs her and he's like, dance with me. And, she just worked a 30-hour shift. She's tired. She's exhausted. She just wants to sleep. And Jack doesn't like that at all. And she's like, she's not trying to be rude to him, but he's getting on her nerves right now. Like, she's exhausted, like I said, and she has to be up in 6 hours to go back to work and do another shift. So Alice is just trying to sleep. When she goes back to her room, Jack goes back to listening to what he was listening to, which was basically Frank. His freaking podcast or voice clip, whatever Frank was on, that's how Jack found Frank in the community or whatever. They were like, are you unhappy? Who is truly happy? And this is not the life that you deserve, and blah, blah, blah. You can have the life that you deserve. All the hoopla or whatever. And the scene cuts again. Alice is back from her treatment and she's back to her old self, her normal self, the community normal self. She's smiling, she's making jokes, she kisses Jack, everything's all cutesy or whatever. And Bunny's just very happy to have her friend back, and it's all sunshine and rainbows and whatever, normal. And the normal, like I said, the normal routine she does, cooking and cleaning, and she goes back to the ballet place or whatever, and she keeps hearing this the instructor, Frank's wife, say there is beauty in control, there's beauty in symmetry. They literally keep, we move as one. They literally keep saying those 3 lines over and over and over again. And the scene cuts. She's at home cooking dinner and she's rushing to the door to open the door for her man with a drink in her hand and a smile on her face. And she hands him the drink, and Jack is early, so she's like, I just gotta finish dinner and we'll eat and then we'll get to more physical activities later. Jack, he goes to the record player about to put on some music, and he's humming this song. No, he's singing this song. And Alice realizes this is the song that's been stuck in my head forever. This is the song that I've been humming, And what ends up happening is she starts getting flashes of her actual life. And with each flash and memory that's coming back to her, she's in pain because she's remembering everything. And Jack's like, just breathe. Everything's going to be okay. And she starts remembering exactly what Jack did to her. She starts remembering that he's the reason that she's here. She's like, what did you do? Why did you do this to me? He's like, I love you. I just want to give you a good life. I love you. And she's like, you don't love me. There's no way you could love me if you did this to me. He's just like, I just want to give you a good life. I just want to give you the life that you deserve, whatever. She's like, how can you do this to me? You took my life. He's like, you were not happy. You weren't happy in your life. You were tired all the time. She's like, this was my life. You had no right to put me in this simulation. You had no right to do this to me. There's no way you could love me. And it's slowly she starts to calm down. Maybe she's just thinking and processing everything that's going on, but slowly she starts to calm down, relax a little bit. But then she's getting she's upset because all the gaslighting and all the lying and how he made her feel like she was crazy and how she was losing, but the entire time he knew what was going on. He's the one who put them in there, so the whole thing is just playing through her head or whatever. And he tells her that all the men, they leave every day to go out into the real world to make money, to pay for them to live there. How she gets to stay here all day and be happy and lucky, and how he hates going off into the real world. And with this, she realizes that all the women are there by force, not by choice. All the women. All the men, they put their wives in that situation. And that kind of anchors her even more. And he's trying to calm her down. But she's just getting madder because all the wives are trapped. All of them are trapped. And he did this to her. And he's trying to hold her and calm her down. But he ends up squeezing her really tight. And she's freaking out, let go, you're hurting me. And then he actively starts squeezing her really tight or whatever. He's trying to hurt her. And she's moving around trying to find something to get him off of her. And she finds this whiskey glass and let's just say Jack is out. Jack is, Bunny's at the house. Apparently Alice passed out after what happened with Jack, and Bunny's like, what happened? Because obviously he's out of there. But while that's going on, somebody tells Frank what happened to Jack, and now he's aware, and he's like, we need to get to Alice. So the screen cuts back to Alice and Bunny, and Alice is trying to explain. She's frantic, what's going on? Telling her what's going on. And Bunny's like, I know everything. I knew. And Alice is like, what do you mean you knew? And Bunny was like, I chose this. I chose to be here. And the reason she did that is because she had lost her children in the real world. And I guess she didn't want to live with that pain, and she wanted to be here, even though she knew her kids aren't actually real, but they're real to her. And in this reality, she didn't lose her kids, so she's happy to be here, happy to stay here. But she's telling Alice, "You gotta go. They know what you did. You gotta go because they're gonna take you out in the real world, you know. So you gotta go." So Alice, she goes outside. She's looking around. The men and the women are outside, like, "Oh my gosh, Alice, what's that on your dress? You know what's on her dress." And they're just like, "Where's Jack?" Everybody's yelling, "Where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where's Jack?" And everybody's freaking out. Alice, she was getting on my nerves at this point in the movie. I ain't gonna lie. She's just looking around, even though she knows people are after her, even though she knows she should be driving away. She's sitting there in the middle of the street, just looking around everything. And I will say, at this part, it gets a little weird. Like, lights are exploding and everything, and the wives are looking like they know something, like something is clicking, and the men are freaking out. The men are like, Frank said this, something like this couldn't happen, like, and the other is telling hush, and like, it's just, everybody's discombobulated, like, everybody is freaking out. Well, the men are freaking out, the women are just like I said, they're looking confused, but also at the same time, like, something's clicking. And Bunny, she runs outside and says, "Alice, run." So Alice dips to the car or whatever, and she's driving off. The men in red, they are after her now. Even some of the regular men, but the men in red, they're after her. Apparently they're security or whatever, and they're trying to get her. She's in the middle of nowhere, trying to drive back to headquarters, to that dome looking thing with the mirrors from before, because that's the only way out of there. That's the only way out of there, where men go every day to get out. And she's driving, she's racing these men. They're trying to, like, make her crash. Anything they could do, grab the wheel, literally anything they could do to get her to stop and not make it out. Because once she makes it out, there is no way for anybody to put her back in, because Jack is gone. So they're trying to make sure she doesn't get out, whatever, but it doesn't work out. Like, she outsmarts them, and she makes the dudes that were following her crash. And she gets to that hill, that winding hill from earlier that I was telling you about, and she's driving up, but then she does the stupidest thing, and she looks back, which causes her to crash into the hill. But the only good thing about this is she did it in an angle to where the cars can't drive up behind her. So now she's on foot, she's booking it, she's trying to get there. But she looks off to the sides, and the men in red, they're climbing up the hill. They're trying to get there by any means necessary to stop her. So again, she starts booking it up the hill, and she finally gets there. And again, she starts making me mad again, because she pauses. She's just looking like she ain't never seen this building before, but she has. And she stays there. And suddenly, like, an image, not necessary, but it feels real. Her husband, Jack, he, like, holds her and says, "Please don't leave me." And she has, like, this memory of them dancing and laughing in bed together and everything, and how much they love them or whatever. But I'm screaming, "Girl, Jack is gone. You made sure that Jack is gone. Run." But again, she's just standing there like she's frozen, like she's trapped or something. And the men in red, they finally catch up. They're about to get her, and she then decides to touch the mirror and go into actual reality. Now, when she touches the mirror, this beautiful, beautiful scene of black and white ballet dancers go, and they doing this beautiful routine and everything. And I guess that's what happens whenever you go in, and when you come out, you see the dancers, you hear Frank's voice talking about accept this reality as your reality, blah blah blah. But yeah, obviously she gets back into the reality, and that's the end of the movie. So that was Don't Worry, Darling. I enjoyed this movie. It was very creepy in certain parts. It was interesting, because at first everything felt like it was just going to be like one of those back in the day movies, like regular drama or whatever. But then, there were like bits and pieces, like things weren't weird, certain things didn't fit, and like there was this whole mystery surrounded by it. So it was more like a thriller. Yeah, I think this is a thriller, and I thoroughly enjoyed those. I love mysteries, I love thrillers, and this was just one of those movies. Like, it was just wrapped into one, and it was so good, really. Like, would I watch it again? Yes, I would watch it again. I feel like this definitely has rewatchability. maybe like every few months or something like that. But all in all, I would give this movie like a solid 8.5. Yeah, 8.5. Yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed it, and I think if you really like thrillers, like some stuff with like mystery and a little bit of is it science fiction? I think it's science fiction. I'm not 100% sure, but if you like thrillers slash mysteries slash science fiction things, or like what could be the other word? No, not fantasy. Yeah, I think it's science fiction. But if you like those things, this is a good movie to watch. Yeah. So that is all for Don't Worry Darling. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to my channel if you like more videos like this, or if you want to like recommend something or just say something, leave it in the comments. Help me out, algorithm love and all that great stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one.